Welcome, everyone, to CDO's magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Ludden, Vice President, Santal Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from Toronto, Canada, working with the CDO magazine, MIT CDO IQ Symposium, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers. Today, I'd like to introduce Kishore Agasthi. Kishore is the Global CDO and Chief Data Analytics Officer of Data Outcome, which I believe, Kishore, is your own company. Welcome.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure joining you. I'm joining from Dallas, but I did experience a little bit of the cold of Canada a couple of weeks ago, so I'm ready.
Well, and also being from Dallas, you would have experienced some of our cold just recently that we sent down to you. So, but we understand the temperatures have gone back to normal now, so we're glad to hear that. So if I might, right off the bat, I noticed that when I was reviewing some background of your career, that you started off as a software engineer, then you went to a principal consultant at Oracle, and it was there that you started to hone your craft into the early days of the internet and data analytics. From there, I saw that you moved into several positions, several director positions, chief technology positions, to then global CDO, quite recently of a very large automotive company. And now you've recently started your own company in the data analytics space. So the first question I have to ask is, what led you to start your own company?
Yeah, very pertinent question. I guess, I have worked for the last 10 years as the global chief data officer for two very large companies. The latest was a large automotive company, and prior to that was a food and facilities company, both Fortune 500. So I've lived through the pains of setting up new global data organizations in large, complex organizations. And the past decade has taught me a lot of things that I have learned in terms of not only setting up the organization and the digital COEs that are needed to support that. I also learned quite a bit living across different continents, the cultural aspects of how this is viewed in different parts of the world. So, and I do believe that there are a few individuals who've had that long an exposure and that varied an exposure across continents. So I thought many CDOs who are coming into these roles from other parts of the organization would be able to leverage from my experience and advice. So I started an advisory company called Data to Outcome, and that's the reason why I am where I am.
Certainly, in reading your bio and having a chat with you, we could spend a whole month of Sundays going through all your different experiences and just benefiting from that. But however, for the majority of this interview, we're going to focus on leadership in the data and analytics space. So right off the bat, what would you consider to be the core principles you would recommend for leaders to focus on?
Yeah, I think as part of any large business, or any business for that matter, the core focus should always be outcomes. If you are a leader as part of any business, your focus should be part of the leadership focus, which is outcomes for the business. And whatever those outcomes have been set as business priorities, that's where we align. Now, what you bring to those outcomes may be a specific capability, and that capability could be part of the digital or analytics space, or how data contributes to that outcome. But that, as a focus, I would say that is the priority. Business outcomes is the priority.
Excellent. So a follow-on question to that is that some organizations that I'm sure you've been a part of are ahead of the game, and some traditional businesses maybe face the extreme management challenges of playing catch up during this period of revolutionary transition, especially in the data analytics space. Could you outline what some of the benefits could be for organizations that have data leaders that are currently, and maybe yourself, succeeding at this particular role?
Yeah. So I think there are industries that are ahead. There are companies that are ahead within certain industries. And then there are leaders who are ahead of their bunch. So, you can see that mix of, characteristics within the companies. I think what's important there is, what it's not because you're competing necessarily in getting organizational structures ready, but it is important to understand why we're doing this and what is, again, as I said, a priority, which is the business outcome. And if organizations plan accordingly and are set up for the transformation that is needed with a position of this sort, then I think they're able to succeed and move ahead of where they are. And as I said, it's very important to understand that this whole thing has to be seen from a perspective of transformation for the business with a focus on outcomes. And when that happens, you will always end up being more successful, whether it is within your industry, across industries, or as a single individual contributing CDO within the organization. Did I miss any part of your question there?
No. Again, we're just looking for your knowledge and how you would see leaders stepping up to plate. So really, if I were to summarize that, it would be fail to plan, plan to fail, which is planning is the key. Planning on your business outcome is fundamentally and driving towards those business outcomes.
Sure. So typically, I would always say, look at it from a standpoint of you start with outcome in mind, you develop your business drivers that drive that outcome, you figure out the KPIs that drive that are the measuring metrics for the drivers. You map your driver, the KPIs, to the data that you actually have in mind or have on-prem or outside or wherever. You map it to the data sources, and then you figure out the gaps. So if you have gaps, you try to fill those gaps, and then you build an infrastructure that can support those data elements, which then can start contributing to measuring the drivers, which ultimately lead to the outcomes. So unless you have a strategy that is aligned that way, you are probably shooting in the dark, and your use cases are going to be coming randomly without an ability to drive the business change that you want.